You're on air with Jamie, the place where female founders, industry leaders, innovators, and disruptors all come to level the fuck up. Today's show is brought to you by Seven Figure Founder Frequency. This is my brand new program that is going to be all about recoding, rewiring, reprogramming your self-sabotage patterns. This is the very first time that I have ever run this program, or frankly, anything like it. And it is so quickly becoming bigger than Ben-Hur. This program is literally evolving in front of my eyes. And I know that this is going to be not just such an impactful program, but something that is really going to be the core of the work that I do here on in. And I'm just honestly so excited for the women who are already behind the scenes, already behind the doors. It is currently open for enrollment at an insane pre-sale rate. It will never be this price again. I know that everyone uses that as a marketing tactic. It's not a marketing tactic. It just is the reality of what this program is evolving into. So if you are finding yourself stuck in these cycles of repeating the same shit over and over and over again, Seven Figure Founder Frequency is for you. The link is in the show notes. Go and check it out. Don't forget, you use the discount code that you will find in the show notes to get a sneaky little discount, because I just love you for listening to these episodes. Today, I have a very special guest, and I am so excited for this conversation with you. I think there is quite often a really big disconnect between the worlds of spirituality and business, which is really ironic because there are so many of us that are building these spiritual businesses or are quite spiritual ourselves and are entering the business world and trying to find a beautiful blend and balance for each. And honestly, Tanita, who is my guest today, was the absolute best person that I could think of to bring on to have this discussion with. She just brings such an air of experience to this area. She is such a spiritual person in herself, but has literally years upon years upon years of experience in business, more from a masculine strategic point of view, which I just found so fascinating. So let's just dive straight into the episode. Buckle up because this was such a good conversation. Okay, Tanita, let's kick this off with what's hot and what's not in the industry this week.
You know what? I have been thinking about this, and honestly, I'm super obsessed with done for you services, especially ones that don't pretend to be anything else. And I think what's not hot in the industry right now, yeah, I mean, marketing for me, it's really like not hot at the moment. I'm seeing so many coaches and service providers like use persuasive marketing and use like bro tactics and just really take themselves away from the true essence of what their business is here for. And it feels like, and I want to call people into a more authentic way to market, I think, because at the moment it's just like, it's just not the space to be.
It's not hot.
It's not hot. It's not hot.
All right, Tanita, welcome to the On Air with Jamie podcast. I am honestly so freaking excited to have you here. I've been brainstorming over the last week, like the things that I really want to talk to you about, because I love these episodes to just be really conversational and to have mega impact. And what I love the most about you, and I've literally got your Instagram bio here to like fully go all in with this. But what I love about you is I know that you are incredibly spiritual. But what I'm seeing when I look at your Instagram bio is such amazing, tangible business experience. And I feel like this is really what the spiritual business community desperately needs. So I'm literally looking at your bio. You've got 5 years in financial planning, 5 years in virtual assistance, and 3 years as a spiritual business coach. But I know that we can sit and also have conversations around ascension to 5D, Akashic records, all of the beautiful things. And I really want to know like how this little mix came to be.
I love this question. And thank you for seeing me in that, because it has honestly only been the last 3 years that I felt comfortable expressing that tangible, logistical side of myself within the spiritual community. And I'm sure so many other people can resonate with this. When you find yourself amidst a community, whether that be financial planning or a business community or the spiritual community, it almost feels like you have to, well, for me, I like chameleonize myself into that and go shut off these parts of myself. And for the past 3 years, I've really challenged myself to be very authentic about who I am and what I'm interested in. And I fell into financial planning 5 years ago. A bit of a backstory: I was kicked out of home, and financial planning was my first full time job. And I dove all into that. And when I fell pregnant with my daughter at 21, I had a huge awakening to the fact that, one, my life was not set up for to be supportive for a very sensitive, emotional, and spiritual person. And I closed myself down to a lot of my ability. And so when I had my daughter, I was reopened to that part of myself and was led through a really massive healing experience. And it was really funny because for so long I grappled with this, like, how do I interlace these two seemingly very polarizing parts of myself? You've got a very heavily masculine, part that's financial planning and business. And then you've got another part that's very feminine and flowy and spiritual. And I was deeply immersed in both of them. If you know anything about me, I am very multi passionate and I can never just have one thing that I am super into. I really tie my roots down deep to multiple things. So, yeah, that's kind of been the story the last couple of years.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so interesting how we feel like we really have to box ourselves in when we become part of community. And I really think it all stems back to that primal brain. Once upon a time, you had to fit in or you would literally be cast aside, and to humans that literally meant death. Like there was no way to survive outside of a community. And it's funny how those like primal instincts are still so ingrained in us over things that like you're never going to be fully cast aside because you're spiritual in a business world or vice versa. But I know so many women who do that, and they really shut off these, important and valuable aspects of themselves in order to help them fit in. What I'm most excited to talk to you about today is the beautiful blend of this spirituality with the tangible strategy that you use in your business and really spruik across social media, because I feel like it is something that's really missing. I feel like you either have like one way or another in business, and that is you're either incredibly intuitive and go with the flow and all of the things, or you're highly strategic and you don't understand what it means to be intuitive or flow or anything like that. But I truly believe that the real key to business is that blend and that like midpoint between the two. So, how do you integrate the two in this world where things are so like polarizing?
This is such a good question. And just to echo what you were saying, I totally agree. There are so many people that are either on one end of the spectrum or the other. And sometimes that can cause, detriment to achieving goals and obtaining success in your business. Because really, this new age that is coming through in terms of conscious business is about weaving the two together. It's about taking the lessons and the learnings that we've had from our forefathers, the masculine men that built large corporations, taking that and weaving a more feminine way into it and finding a balance. And I think that we can get lost with trying to overcompensate for one energy over the other. So I come forward with a very like balanced mindset in terms of how we can weave these two ways together. And I think that strategy should complement your intuition and vice versa. On the days where you are feeling low in energy, low in connection to spirit, your strategy should be able to hold you and give you enough space to reconnect and find that flow once again. And in the days where you feel like your spirit is high and you are connected with your guides and your intuition is on fire and you know your mission and you're so deeply connected, on those days, if maybe your strategies are low, that should be able to hold you, right? And so I feel like it's this beautiful synergy of both. But for me, it's always been my vision that carries me forward in the more spiritual, intuitive side. What I mean by this is my spiritual strengths and abilities come from my ability to see. I'm a Pisces soul. I've taught the Akashic records for the past 3 years. So I'm deeply connected with the ability to see things. And so that woven in with my business helps me really have a strong foundation. But that might not be the case for everybody. Their ability might be connecting with other people. So they might not need to create a strategy to connect with other people because it's something that comes deep within their soul, right? And so it's important to have awareness and not copycat. This is another thing that's so not hot at the moment, is copycat other people's blueprints, because no one can ever fucking replicate you or somebody else's. We are all so different. And that's why I think having that awareness around, one, what your strengths are, and two, what you can lean on others for, can be really, really supportive in this conversation.
I actually really love what you said about
Love
the
it.
copycatting, because this is something that I have noticed and been noticing really for the last year. And it's in everything. It's in the way that people are showing up. It's in the verbiage that they're using. It's in their marketing. And it's literally down to even like the style of content that they're creating. And what I'd love to know, in your opinion, is, do you think that this is like a subconscious thing, or do you think that these are people who are not solid in themselves and therefore they think that they need to copy? It's a totally loaded question, because this is what we're here for.
Yes. I like, oh my God, there's a million different ways.
Right.
Honestly, I think it's a little bit of both. It really is. For me, all I can lean on is my own experience in the past. And when I first entered this spiritual space and wanting to offer my abilities as a psychic and as somebody who connected to spirit, I looked to other people in the industry. It was a completely new space. And I thought, well, I don't want to feel called out yet. I want to feel safe in this place. So I went with neutral colors. I went with like the white shirt and the bohemian look, because that's what I could see represented in my industry. And it's not to say that I copied other people, but it was to say that I found a lot of complacency in what I was seeing in the industry, and I felt safe in that. And I think that that came with a lot of awareness after a couple of years of offering my services and realizing that, oh, this actually isn't me. And while it served a purpose, maybe at the beginning, it was never truly authentic. And so I think that we have to give ourselves grace in terms of maybe what we've chosen to do and who we've chosen to copy in the past, but having that awareness and having that point that you go, no, like I am here for me and I'm ready to be seen, and doing that inner work, I think that can be a pivotal moment. So to answer your question, from what I've seen in my own journey, I think that it comes from, yes, fear, but also too, from a lack of inner work. And I think it just comes with time. Like, I think so many of us are like, I want to build a 6-figure brand, but I only want to offer one service, or I've only just been offering something for the past week, and we want to rush into things. And so we look to people in our industry to mimic and to copy because we think that that's going to bridge the gap. And while we can bridge the gap with knowledge, I don't think we can bridge the gap with choosing other people's path to success.
Yeah, I love that. I also just saw 1111 while you were speaking about that. And I think this is
Oh,
such an important topic to bring to light. And there's like a few things in that, because I've definitely found myself in the same shoes as you, where I was like very much like from a color scheme perspective, and the way that I was speaking, like very much conforming to what I saw in the industry. And what's really interesting is like I would consider us as being part of the same industry, but
yeah.
like what you're reflecting and what I saw were actually two different things. So when I was like creating content in the beginning, it was very much like, you know, all of the pastel colors and the pinks and the purples and all of that stuff. I literally went out and bought an entire new like wardrobe of clothes that were
Yeah.
on brand. Yeah, I expose myself all the time because this is the bullshit that I used to do. And therefore, I know that other women are doing the same thing. But I literally went and bought all of these clothes that were like pinks and purples so that I could be on brand all the time. And then I was like, hang on a minute. Like, yeah, I love pink and I love purple, but they're actually not colors that I would just wear on a daily basis. So why am I like, doing this? Why have I decided that these are my brand colors when they're not really like actually on brand for me and who I am? And I definitely think that like to touch on the inner work side, it does come down to truly knowing who you are as a person and accepting who you are as a person. But also I think it's not being scared to change and grow and evolve and allow everything else to change, grow and evolve with it. Because there were
Mhm.
times where I was like fully aware that wasn't my thing, and I knew that I was just doing it to be there and be online because I was too scared to keep changing and look flaky. When you grow and quantum leap so fucking fast, it feels like every few months you could just upgrade your whole brand because it no longer feels aligned and you're a new person, right?
Yeah.
And I think like allowing yourself to do that and to see that, it's cool. It's cool. It doesn't make you look flaky. You're a human. You get to evolve and you get to grow.
Yes, I agree.
What I really want to chat about as well is this whole like when you blend the intuition with the strategy, a story that I actually had this conversation in my DMs a little while ago. And it was my what's hot and what's not in the industry actually a couple of months ago now. But I thought it was so interesting. She's a very intuitive person working with a very strategic coach. And therefore they were really butting heads. And I'd love to
Mm.
know your experience because you can see both sides and blend them so beautifully. What would your advice be in a situation where someone who was highly intuitive was working with someone who was very strategic and therefore was feeling a bit uncomfortable? But the thing is, they knew that this person would be able to help them with growth.
Yeah, this is loaded. Hey, I've
Super
spent
loaded.
$10,000 on a coach that didn't align with me, and I felt totally manipulated into it. So I think that it's really important to one have awareness at the beginning why you are going into this relationship with a coach, and really if it's for your business, taking your ego out of it, whether or not you have differences in values, whether or not you have differences in opinions, understanding why it is you're getting into a relationship with a coach, why you're exchanging with that coach, and understanding that this coach is really meant to fill up the spots of you that maybe you need some more knowledge around, or maybe you need some advice around. So I think that we get confused sometimes because a coach to me is somebody who is meant to not complete you in any way, shape, or form, but help you expand in the ways that you feel like you can't quite see yet. Where you have awareness that I want to grow in this particular area, but what I have in my tool belt right now is not helping me achieve that expansion in that particular area. And so it's hard, right? I totally like have a lot of sympathy for this situation, because it's really hard when you're a spiritual person, you're sensitive, you want to be around like-minded people because one, you're healing generational curses that say, hey, you cannot be outside of the box, you cannot be around people who aren't like you because they will kill you, like literally. And so it's hard when we put ourselves in those situations. But there comes a very fine line when you are talking to somebody who doesn't understand you and doesn't have an awareness for who you are and your own values too. I think the issue comes when you put yourself in a situation with a coach as a sensitive person who looks down on you or diminishes your ability and strength as an intuitive person. And so having that awareness that yes, we're different, this is what I'm looking for the relationship, this is what I know I'm not going to get from the relationship, but also having just some general kindness and unconditional love for the other person that you're entering a relationship with, because that's what it is. It's a lot of fucking time, it's a lot of money, it's a huge investment to be with somebody in that capacity. So my advice would be, one, get clear not only on yourself but on what you want from the coach, and two, understand what you're not going to get, and is that okay with you? At the end of the day, you are okay with getting that and not getting something and being okay to hand over that exchange. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Something else I was thinking about, and I know that this is up your alley as well, is, and like a slight pivot from the strategy, but still relevant, is when it comes to like the technical tools and systems that then support you as an intuitive person. Because I know a lot of people who are very intuitive and like to work in the flow, myself included, that really struggle to put like the strategy to that flow and that intuition, and struggle to put the systems in place, because it almost feels like, oh, well, if I have systems and I have structure, it's going to like really affect how I get into flow. And I know that that is not true. I know that we need that structure in order to support the flow, right? But can you tell us a little bit more about this from your point of view, and maybe some of the systems and strategies and even like tools that you use to help support your own flow and intuition?
Yeah, for sure. Every time I'm asked this question, I have this memory one day, and I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with having a huge spout of inspiration or a massive download come through, whether it be in the middle of the night or 3 a.m. in the morning. Well, one day I was outside and my daughter was playing and we were drawing with chalk, and then all of a sudden it starts pelting down, and I remember getting this huge download, and I was like scribbling on the chalk, like on the concrete, trying to write it down, trying to capture what was coming through, because I'm the type of person where you got to catch it. And if I don't catch it in that moment, it's gone. I can't contain the energy. The passion kind of dissipates. And so in that moment, there was a huge fucking lesson, because the water washed it away within minutes, right? And I felt like all of this, you know, all of the time that I've spent honing my ability to connect with spirit, honing my ability to be super creative and super intuitive, just washed away in seconds. And it's a huge lesson, because these systems, these ways of capturing that essence that flows through us so quickly, can be so incredibly supportive. And I see my systems as almost like a cauldron, and I can get really woo. So I
We're
hope
here
this
for
doesn't
it.
put
Go
any
for
okay.
it.
Like, you think about the amount of ideas that we have on a day-to-day basis, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a creative soul. Having somewhere to put that and contain the energy in case we want to come back to it, we need to pour back into it. Maybe we need to go and build a certain skill set or connect to another, it's just a space to contain it, a space to let it grow, a space to nurture it. And I honestly think that for a lot of us, it is a subconscious belief that I don't want to put this out into the world. I want to keep it all to myself. Or it's a self sabotage in terms of like, I don't want to be seen sharing my ideas and sharing my gifts, so I'm just going to expend all this energy and then feel burnt out. And as a creative soul, as an intuitive person, we have to really take care of our energy, and our systems and our structures and our strategies, they allow us to do that. Because a lot of you can get burnt out by the amount of ideas that you have and not knowing where to put it. It can almost feel so emptying to have this incredible idea for a program or for a one-on-one service, and sit there and scribble out all the downloads, and then tomorrow wake up and be like, I just don't feel like doing that. Like, what was the point of that download? If you had a system in place, if you had a structure in place, if you had a team of people to support you, that vision could see the day, it could see the light, and it could touch the hearts of those who it came here to touch, right? I believe that your business chose you to help birth its creative visions into the world and let its mission reach the people that it came here to reach. And having your systems in place does that. So, to answer your question in terms of what I use technology wise, I use ClickUp. It's quite expensive, but if you don't like ClickUp, you can use tools like Monday and Asana and all of those other product management tools. It does take a minute to get used to it, especially if you're a very creative mind and you don't like putting like plans into place. So I would invite you to hire someone to do it. Like I said, I'm obsessed with done for you services. Hire somebody else to create a board, tell them what you want. I want a space to put my ideas so they don't get lost. I want a way that I can funnel my creations into life or into a project or into content, and allow someone to build that for you. There are people out there who literally get hard to do that. And so allow them to do that for you. The other thing I use is Notion. My notes on my iPhone for the past like 3 years is just, it gives me anxiety looking at it. So Notion is a good space where I can organize my shit and not get lost in all of the like crazy downloads that come. And also for client management, because right now we've just launched virtual assistant services. So for clients, this is exactly what I'm helping people do at the moment. We use things like Loom, heaps of other product stuff, but really it's just at the moment, I think, to capture all of that inspiration.
Yeah, I love that. I am the same with my note section because for so long, like the note section has been like my go-to, and I have to go through and clear it out every now and then because otherwise it's kind of like the place where ideas go to die because they get lost. And so I myself have moved to Notion for exactly that. And what I'd actually love to know, and this is like getting into a little bit of what's the book? Elizabeth Gilbert Big Magic,
Yeah.
where have you read it? It's the best. It was like one of my first like introduction into this like world books of
Ooh.
creativity and stuff.
Yeah.
And I always loved the concept of like the ideas come in, but if you don't act on it, it will be kind of plucked off you and taken and dropped to someone
Yes.
else. And I would love to know when it comes to downloads, because women in my world they're into the intuition, they're getting the downloads, but often they're not acting fast enough, and therefore the excitement of the original download is gone. What I find is that like the idea comes in and like we're writing it down, we're recording it somewhere, but then it kind of feels unfinished, and therefore we don't start taking action on it. And by the time nothing really else gets a chance to drop in, if you will, because the energy is gone, we haven't taken any action, we haven't moved, we haven't done anything. Can you speak to that for a moment? Because I just would love to know, like, if that's your experience as well. If you get downloads and then don't act on them fast enough, if they kind of just disappear into thin air, or is it a matter of like, I know so many people like to wait till they have the whole picture before they start to move. Like, let's dive into this.
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. And look, have you ever had a girlfriend that keeps asking you for advice and you keep giving her advice and she's like, oh, yeah, okay, like, nah, and moves on, right? And you keep giving her advice, you keep telling her, she keeps asking, and she just doesn't do anything with it. How frustrating is
And
that,
you get the
right?
shits. You're like,
You get
bitch,
the
don't
shits.
fucking ask me anymore. I'm done.
Exactly. So next time she comes, after 10 times of you giving her a whole heartfelt like advice spiel and saying how much you love her, you're just like, I can't fucking do this anymore, right? Like, this is how I feel that our spirit team gets with us and our intuition gets with us sometimes. Because when we're not trusting our own gut, whether you believe in spirit guides, whether you believe in intuition, that self-talk, when you're not trusting the ideas that come down, is like that friend that's not taking your advice, right? And so that self-talk, that programming in your mind starts to tell you, don't trust your ideas, we don't listen to ourselves, let's not do anything, we stay still, we don't trust ourselves, right? And we get really out of touch and we start to doubt ourselves and question ourselves. And I know that's not everybody's journey, but over a long period of time, it definitely could be. So I want to bring awareness to that fact. And secondly, I think that if you spend time setting up systems in terms of like, what do I actually want from the ideas that I'm receiving? And in a business, it's usually to share an offer or a service or product, a course, whatever it may be. So spending time to create Instagram templates, like a whole carousel creating like webinar slides where you can just sit there, take your downloads, and then plug and play. Because we get caught up in that moment of receiving the inspiration. It kind of dissipates when we have to do like the mundane tasks, right? We're in that high frequency energy. We don't want to let it go. And so we think that sitting there and nutting it out on the computer and doing all this work can sometimes take away from the energy. And I think that this is where plug and play stuff gets really like fiery, because you can just literally receive the download and plug and play. And I think thirdly, us as entrepreneurs, part of our job is to enroll people into the visions that we receive prior to actually having a manifested, like physical, tangible product. If you are building a course from start to finish and then selling it, honey, you're doing it wrong, because you are wasting so much time before you even recognize that people want this, right? You are going to get 1,000 million trillion ideas, and maybe only 100,000 of those are going to be your ticket into receiving high influxes of cash. And the reason is because some ideas are meant to be shared and some ideas are meant to be put into the form of a product and service. It is not up to you to decide which ones like are going to be the high ticket, which ones are going to be received well from other people, right? It's just our duty as a creative spirit and as an intuitive soul to share those. And so you will know which ones are meant to be birthed into a course, which ones are meant to be birthed into content, but putting it out into the world can give you a really big signal as to whether or not you have to go further with it. If you are sitting on it and it's like staying in yourself and you're not really talking about it too much, how are you ever going to know how far this is meant to go? And so, yeah, I think it's really important, because I see so many people think that they have to have everything done. And I just think that that's so not the way.
Yeah, and I think you lose the energy then too when it takes you weeks to build out a program from like it started as this beautiful download, it started as this beautiful idea, and then all of a sudden you've planned it out and then you're recording the modules and you're doing all the things, and it's weeks and weeks and weeks, sometimes months for some people. And I know because this was again me a few years
Yeah.
ago, meticulously planning everything out. By the time you even got to the end of that, your energy was like
Yeah.
not even behind it to sell. And so it was more often than not, I find it's not well received on the other end because you've got no energy to put behind it. And I truly believe that no strategy will ever be able to outplay your energy. Like the strategies are needed. There's not that for me, that's a non-negotiable in business. You have to have
Yeah.
some sort of strategy, right? But it's your energy that really gives the oomph to the strategy. And so a strategy without energy for me is just nothing, right?
Mhm.
What's on the other end to magnetize people to it? Now, there was something else that I wanted to go into, but
Don't
that was
you love
just so like I got so caught in what you were saying that I was like, yes, yes, yes.
that?
Um,
Oh,
what
that's
I
so
want to talk about actually is for you, for if you were to be talking to like someone who is very, not beginner, but new into the world of receiving downloads, something
Mhm.
that I find really interesting and like trigger warning for anyone listening that, does this, but I find in the spirituality community that a lot of things in my experience have been very much about taking the power from us to outside of us. And what I mean by this is that it's always a power external to you that you're receiving guidance from. It's not you, right? It's always something else. And then to the point of like, oh, well, we have to do tarot cards or pull angel cards every day because that's giving us the guidance. Again, the power's outside of us. All the way to people who have the altars set up in their house and that's their like spiritual corner. Love it, beautiful. But again, the power's outside of you, and you're telling yourself that only when you're in that dedicated special space can you receive the downloads. And I was this person for so long. I was like, oh, well, I can't receive downloads unless I have perfect silence in my house and I have a candle lit and I've done fucking, 30 seconds of meditation, like all the things, all the conditions that we put on, receiving downloads. And now I'm like, no, fuck that. I don't need an altar. I don't need anything other than myself. And to literally, for me, it's like drop into my heart space and be like, I'm open. Like, I'm a channel, I'm open, drop them in. And I feel like now I've just run around in a whole circle, but I'd love to know your opinion on that whole thing, because I feel like you're a bit deeper into like the spiritual community than probably I am. So I'm really interested in, yeah, your opinion on that whole, you know, power being, where is the power? Where does the power sit?
You know what? When you first started talking, my eye roll could not be bigger, because this is the thing that shits me off about the spiritual community. Like, it really sucks. And look, I have literally been teaching people. I've been a spiritual teacher for the past couple of years. Like, I was teaching people how to launch and run their spiritual business online, how to read the Akashic records, how to interact with spirit. And I totally, totally agree. I think that there is an amazing opportunity that comes from connecting to a frequency or a source outside of yourself with, of course, a lot of protection and a lot of understanding. But in saying that, you can only go as deep with your practices as you can go as deep with yourself, right? Like, and it's really important to understand that, like, we are the source, we are the container. Whatever we are wanting to achieve outside of ourselves can first be achieved within. And I know that that can be sometimes really infuriating to hear, but it's so fucking true. Like, you want to earn more money in your business. How can you earn more money in yourself? How can you feel more abundant in this moment? You want better relationships in this world. Well, maybe you should sit down and actually sit with yourself for 5 fucking minutes without like taking yourself away from yourself. Like, how can you make this you like an incredible pillar and solid anchor for your whole entire life? And we spend so much of our lives running outside of ourselves, looking to other people for support, for inspiration, for the blueprint. We look to spirit, we look to tarot, we look to the Akashic records for all of the answers. And all of those divination tools are doing is reflecting what you already fucking know inside of you. Like, I get so amused when people are like, well, how do I connect to my Akashic records? And how do I know like that it's actually me connecting? And I've said, well, I don't know, like Billy Joe is not coming over next door and like running and telling you something. You're the one receiving the answers. So it's just this whole process of trusting yourself. And that's really where it comes to. And if you're at the beginning of your journey and you think that you need to meditate for 6 hours a day and you need to learn how to read the Akashic records and you need to know every one of the fucking tarot cards, it's just not true. If you want inspiration, if you want divine connection, go within, because you are an expression of the universe. You are a divine expression of source in this moment. Every one of us is. And you cannot look to other people to find that true essence, because it is within yourself. And I know that if you're at the beginning of this journey, sometimes you're like, I don't want to look in there. It's kind of scary. And I've been avoiding it my whole life. And so it takes a minute to get comfortable with understanding that it's okay to be in silence with yourself. And it's okay to open up a space where you can learn about what your true thoughts are. I remember at the beginning of my journey, and this isn't everybody's journey, but at the beginning of mine, there was a lot of time to heal because I had been running away from myself. I had been putting the power in everybody else's hands and then trying to avoid my own thoughts. And I was so disconnected with my own desires. I was so disconnected with what I wanted from life. And it took me a really long time to listen to what I wanted and to get in that repetitive habit of saying, what do you want? Okay, let me do that for you, and being my own best friend. Nobody else is coming to fucking save your business. Nobody else is coming to earn you money. You are. So you better get real good about listening and trusting and granting yourself your desires, because that's what's going to lead the way, not the tarot cards, not somebody else. It's you. And it always, always will be.
Oh my God. I actually have goosebumps. Like, I was like vibrating, like, holy fuck. It's so true though. It's
Yeah.
so true. And I think, until I did a podcast interview. It was a few weeks ago, and I was talking about, like, I refer to our higher consciousness as super conscious. And the work that I do involves connecting with super conscious, and then we can actually reprogram and we can unblock our body and our chakras and all of that, our energy essentially, as well as rewire our mind, our limiting beliefs, our conditioning, all of that stuff, right? So we can connect with that. But I refer to it as, it's your higher self essentially. And when I was explaining this concept, the person that was interviewing me was like mind blowing, because I was like, well, when we work from your consciousness is out here, your subconscious, and then your higher self, your super conscious is here. And she's like, I'm just shocked because everyone talks about this stuff as if it's outside of you. And I was like, that's the problem. It's not outside of you. It is you. It is all you. It is all within you. And when I literally say to people, like, you actually have the answers within you, you actually have the power within you, so many people don't believe me because we're literally wired and conditioned to always be looking outside of ourselves. It starts in childhood, right? And now I feel like this, online industry is even kind of like orchestrating it further, like reconditioning it, because again, we're outside of ourselves. We're looking at coaches, we're looking at spiritual practices, we're looking at different tools, and it's always putting the power outside of us. So I love that. I literally feel like I'm on a high from this conversation and I could talk to you all day, but let us know. I know you've just gone through a massive, massive shift in your business. Tell us what's going on, where people can find you, and what's, in the works for your business over the next couple of months.
Oh, yes. Big shifts. I'm very excited. We've just launched virtual assistant services for the visionary woman who wants to scale her business. So I'm really excited about that because I've been in this industry for a couple of years, 3 years now, and I see so many intuitive, mission-driven women who don't know how to utilize systems, strategies, and processes to actually birth their visions into reality. And so I've launched this part of my business to help them actually do that. And it really breaks my heart because I spent the past 3 years listening to the visions that all of these women hold. And I'm like, if they saw the light of day, the world would truly be different. Like, could you imagine the world that our babies would grow up in? And so that's what's driven me to launch this part of my business. And I know it's a massive shift. People have seen me go from like talking about Akashic records to being like, this is the thing that I use in my business. So it's really exciting. I'm really happy to be here. But Prosper Online Creative Solutions is all about virtual assistant services, business coaches, especially for those intuitive, vision-driven women. So come and hang out with me on Instagram. If you've got any questions, please let me know. And I think the most important thing that I want to leave everybody with is just knowing that you're not for everybody, and that's okay. I totally understand that my service is not for everybody. And I am finally at a point where I am so fucking okay with that. Like, that excites the fuck out of me because I know that the women that I'm going to be working with are truly who I want to be working with. And I'm really excited for this next chapter, and I hope that we can support anybody in that too. So thank you for having me. I've loved this conversation so much.
Thanks, lady. Oh my gosh, I will make sure that all of your things are linked in the show notes below for anyone who has loved this conversation and is sitting here like, yes, I need that. I need help to birth my ideas into this world. Tanita is your girl.